people on the internet want to reduce this film to be about Indian family values or traditional marriages without once acknowledging what is at the heart of this film, which is the way Indian society treats women and expects of women.
He says that, oh, we'll cook today. But he starts with, oh, do these 10 things for us, keep it ready, and then, which is literally everything. Like, that's cooking.
If you have a group of 10 people and 8 people are going to adhere to one thing. So if 8 women, for example, think it's okay that they have to do this and 8 men think it's okay for their wives to be these people, then that is not going to change until that number comes down from an 8 to 5.
There's a lot of people on the internet who are saying that this is not reality. Men are not like this and, women are not like this, etc., etc. Because if it was real world and a woman would dare to do something like that with their husbands, she would be burned alive.
If guests come home and there are men and women from the host side sitting, it's the women who instantly get up and rush to the kitchen to help whoever's in the kitchen, and it's the men who are just sitting and talking and probably making drinks.
Hello and welcome to the 3rd episode of So What. We're joined again, I say this happily and not exasperatedly, by Nikhil and Garima. Nikhil is the chief and co-founder of Yuvaa. Garima was Yuvaa employee number 1. She's also an award-winning writer. And both of them, thankfully, have come back this week to talk about something that's really important. I want to start off, as always, by asking you how you're feeling. And I'll remind you of the format, which is this week I am feeling X because X. We'll start with Garima, who has prepped for this. Oh, she forgot about it.
I forgot.
Okay, we'll start with Nikhil, who is known for feeling things. How are you feeling, Nikhil?
This week I am feeling, what is the right word? I need to find a good word for this.
Pursuit of greatness, oh God. So is that Oscar speech by Timothy?
Yeah. He's inspired by Viola Davis, Michael Jordan.
What is a good thing to say?
Okay, can I go?
Oh yeah, I found it.
Oh shit.
Okay.
How are you feeling, Nikhil?
This week I'm feeling emotionally fulfilled.
That's a good one. That's
Exactly.
2 words.
Yes.
Good words.
Yes,
Why are you
because
feeling emotionally fulfilled?
because I was at the wedding of Prajakta, who's a dear friend, who got married to Vrishank, who has been with her since they've been together for a decade now. And I think there's something so beautiful about watching 2 people who are in love choose each other for life. Like, I find the concept of marriage and weddings just utterly romantic when it happens for the right reasons. So I'm in a very good space after that wedding.
That's really sweet.
And again, I think Prajakta has always worn her heart on her sleeves. She's always been so open and vocal about her relationship with Vrishank that I also think that everybody on the internet is in some way a part of that festivity. You know, so I also find that really sweet, wholesome, welcoming, warm wedding. It was very sustainable. It was, and that's something that obviously not many people would know or no one's really spoken about so far. But it was everything that was printed on paper was of recyclable paper. There were no plastic bottles anywhere. It was only glass bottles everywhere. And it was done within greenery. So it was literally a wedding of and for nature. And again, I feel like people don't know this side of Prajakta, and I really appreciate that she actually walks the talk as well. So it just felt so nice being part of a wedding which was everything I would also stand for as a person. There was a female pandit also, so it was a feminist wedding also in that sense. So in all, I just think it's such a beautiful 2 days. Like, I miss it. It's such a wonderful 2 days of.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
I want to burst that bubble a little bit by pointing out that not burst that bubble, but I first saw the first picture of Nikhil and Prajakta and Vrishank on Sufi Motiwala's Instagram, where he's rating outfits. And I was like, now Nikhil has achieved some next level of fame.
Did he rate his
He-
outfit?
No, he
That's what
just-
Nikhil said.
So I don't know, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I think it's a good thing that he did not talk about my outfit, because I'm sure he didn't. If he would have, he wouldn't have had great things to say, because a very bare minimum, like, reception outfit, black suit and a dark blue shirt.
I think
having
he wants to be called for the next season of Be a Man. Yeah, that's why he's keeping his mouth shut.
or but then at the same time I'm also thinking that is it a bad thing that he just completely ignored me? So I don't know what to feel right now because I'm just
Sufi Motiwala, if you watch this podcast, you still have a chance to rate Nikhil's fit.
no, please don't.
But you
But I
said
don't
that you're
want
feeling
it.
bad.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not. I didn't say bad. I said confused. I
Yeah.
don't know how to feel because at one place I'm very grateful that he's not rating my outfits because I know they don't rate very highly. I am very well aware of my lack of fashion sense, fashion aesthetic. So I'm very happy that he's not rating it.
Garima, how are you feeling?
So taking from this, I just thought I'm signing up for a podcast with two friends, but I didn't realize I'm signing up for a podcast with two really famous, popular people.
One really famous popular person.
Who is she talking about?
That's
Both
you.
of you.
I am also not one of those, but okay, go on.
Because my Instagram is buzzing now and I'm overstimulated. Like, although I'm very grateful, thankful, yay, yippee, woo, but it's just, I feel overstimulated this
By
week.
the response that you
Yeah.
gotten. Yeah.
Good,
has it
bad,
been
ugly,
good?
whatever.
But has it mostly been good?
Yeah, it's mostly been good.
That's good.
How are you feeling, Kevin?
How are you feeling, Kevin?
I'm feeling good. This is a good week. I'm traveling to Goa tomorrow for another wedding.
Wow, how
Very, very
exciting.
social. And it's my birthday next week. So I'm going to
Yay.
Missouri for my birthday, which I'm also very excited about. To our next section, which is So What's Up, where I will ask each of you what your rose and your thorn is for this
We
week.
have to keep it short now.
Yeah, keep it short. A rose is something good that's happened to you, or something good, or something that you're happy about. A thorn is something that you are annoyed or sad about. And a bud is something that you're hopeful about, but we'll get to the bud at the end of the song.
Okay.
Garima, you have notes for this part.
Yes.
Do you want to go
I love
Yeah.
it.
first with
Okay.
your rose and thorn?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
And she just look at the note and she's just like, okay, like you
This
could
is
have done that before then. It's not like you're reading out.
but
It's okay.
I.
You do you, Garima.
You do.
thank you.
Yeah, you do you.
Thank you for being so
I'm a feminist.
Yeah.
Are you?
Go for
you
it.
Are. My rose is that I have just newly fallen in love with this podcast. Shout out,
Wow,
Moment of
newly-
Silence.
I love how it
I thought
started.
she's shouting out this
It's like-
podcast.
Why would I do that? That
I
was
thought
so
you thought-
narcissistic. That is so. That was so weird. That-
Okay. No,
I thought she was
take
talking
it.
about
I
someone.
mean,
in-
at least let's at least do.
I
like
thought she was saying
couple of episodes.
I've fallen newly in love, and I was like, oh, what? This is
a
a
person.
big.
I wouldn't reveal that
Rose-
on the podcast.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe
That,
not.
who knows?
Not yet. Sorry,
Not
go
yet.
on.
Okay, I will
Yeah.
now not 100% not. But she started with a big thing, man. She's like,
Yeah.
I've recently fallen in love. I was like, what?
I have recently fallen in love with the podcast. Shout out to Moment of Silence podcast. It's really entertaining. I love it. And I just listen to it while falling asleep. It's very soothing. It's like, women,
Good save,
like
yeah.
women talking about like bad bitch stuff. Like, yes, this is the stuff I want to fall asleep to. Fuck meditation. Oh, sorry. Screw meditation.
We can bleep it out. It's fine.
Okay.
We do say luck on this podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Garima, for bringing in that perspective. Nikhil, Rose and Thorn.
So I've already spoken about my rose, which is the wedding. But one of the things that I really enjoyed doing as part of the wedding, which is not related to the wedding, was we were at Karjat at this massive venue, and it had a paddle ball. It's called.
Yeah, it's called paddle.
It's called
Yeah.
paddle. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a paddle court, and Saransh Goyla who is like now a professional paddle player and competes, in it.
Oh, yeah.
And Taruk Raina, who also is just like a fit person in general and
Yeah.
plays sport and has known tennis. So they were going, and I was like, we are hanging together, so I also want to come.
Yeah.
So I lost really badly, but it was so much fun playing a sport after, I think, childhood. So
Wow,
absolutely.
so sweet.
Okay, Thorn. What is the
Keep
thorn?
it one sentence long.
That is my
Thanks,
thorn.
thanks.
It's hard for me to say things in short.
This is your thorn?
Like
I mean,
this
I don't know.
week.
That is,
This week particularly.
my thorn. Okay,
Yeah.
my thorn is fucking Instagram. I have 150,000 likes on the post with Prajakta,
Yeah.
and so far in like
Yeah.
about 4 hours, I have about 161 likes on my post about an award I won for the work that I've done in mental health over a decade. For 10 years, I've been working in the field of mental health, and I receive a felicitation for that. And Instagram decides that
Yeah.
161 people should see it or like it.
Kevin, what is
Thank
your
you.
rose and bud?
Wow, so sweet of you for asking. The rose happened today only. I got
Oh.
a message from somebody who's my mom's friend, was actually really kind enough to, she sponsored a part of my college education when I was going for a postgraduate in journalism.
Wow.
We were not doing financially great, and she had paid a part of the fees. And when I worked for many years, because journalism doesn't pay you, to get that money back and went back to give it to her, she had said, just pass it on to somebody else who needs it.
Wow.
And she's the sweetest, and she's been my mom's friend from college. She messaged to say she heard the podcast and she really liked it, the first episode, but especially the bit on Udit Narayan. She's like, it's so cool that two men are like talking about this in this way. And I hope she checks out this episode as well. So she texted, it was really, really sweet. So that made me happy that we're doing this. My Thorn is, have you seen the Trump Gaza video? That seems like a parody, but is something that he has posted on his own Instagram. And now the funniest thing is people are commenting on that saying, we didn't vote for you to do this, which is like, why did you vote for it?
Yeah, why indeed?
This is kind of like the most Trumpy thing that he can do. I mean, it's obnoxious by his standards, sure, but like, are you really surprised at this point?
Dude, but this...
little bit, yeah. If I'm being honest.
But this timeline is just, I mean, I sometimes I just wake up and I go online and I'm just like, this is all unreal. This timeline doesn't feel like a real timeline.
Reality is stranger than fiction.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so the big thing we're talking about this week, so what happened this week, is that a film came out. It didn't come out this week. It came out 2 weeks back. It's called Mrs. It's on Z5 and you can watch it, and you should. And what has been really funny is the reactions of men and some women to the film. There are a lot of people outraging over it, and we really want to get deep into what is it about a film that just shows the reality that a lot of women today face that is so triggering to men. And it's become this whole debate about the traditional value of marriage and the traditional role of women. And I'm sure that Nikhil and Garima, who have both watched the film, have a lot of thoughts. And we'll just get into that.
So I didn't watch Mrs. because I've seen Great Indian Kitchen until today when we discussed that we are going to be talking about this film, and I realized that the reason that I didn't want to watch Miss or like live through that film again was because I was so triggered the first time I watched it. It's a slow burn. It really calls you out because I think somewhere we've also been we've lent to that culture where we've asked our mothers to sort of do this labor which we are ungrateful for a lot of times, which is just hidden labor, right? And it triggered me like for the entirety of the film.
I think you've used the right word. I was so triggered while watching this film, and I would imagine any empathetic person should be triggered by the depiction of what we saw. Of course, people on the internet, and especially like conservative people on the internet, want to reduce this film to be about Indian family values or traditional marriages without once acknowledging what is at the heart of this film, which is the way Indian society treats women and expects of women. And of course, see, as someone who talks about masculinity, literally hosts a show called Be a Man Yaar, talks about the issues that men face. A lot of those, this is not, and I want to preface what I'm saying by this because obviously that is always the first comeback of people who have backlashes against movies like this. It is that what if we also depicted a film with men doing something like men just having a hard 9 to 5. An actual LinkedIn post that went viral recently was this man who said that Indian films just take everything to the extreme and make it a cause of great suffering. But if a man was to do, if he depicted a 9 to 5 of a man and how hard he has to work, I'm sure that like nobody is going to make a film like that. There is a film like that. It's called Tamasha. And when Tamasha came out, women weren't having meltdowns saying that how dare you talk about men having it tough. No. In fact, so many women I know are big fans of that film. So many women I know love and respect the fact that the inner emotional turmoil of men is depicted so well. But what men and mostly men, and I would actually, it's still a lot of women also, so I can't, most people who are outraging against this film do not understand that patriarchy is responsible for both. it is responsible for when men have to do 9 to 5 and just provide and provide and provide and do not get nurturing themselves and are unable to give nurturing. They become those men in the film like Mrs., which are the fathers and the husbands of women like this, where they can own, they're just so consumed with their own lives, they can't even, they can't look at the woman in the home as a human being. It has happened in every one of our homes, right? There's just expectation that like there's a sentence in the film that when Sanya Malhotra's character is on a dinner with some friends and she's had a little bit of wine or something, and she just opens up and jokes and says, "Oh, he treats me like a cook and a maid, and that's what I do for him, right? I'm the domestic worker, I'm the house help, and I'm just his cook. I don't have." I'm not really a wife. He's just got everything for cheap in one package. That's something for free. You know, he basically says this and he gets very offended. He's like, do I treat you like this? You know, I don't treat you like this. But the fact is that in the minds of so many people, and I mean men, women, and so many other people in our society, because there's also a woman character, the Bua in that, who treats her exactly like this, right? In the minds of so many people in our Indian society, the job of the woman is to, and which is why they're feeling that traditional family values are getting, are getting questioned in this, because they feel that the job of an Indian woman is only to cook and nurture and be there for their families and raise their families and raise their children and not have an identity of their own. That is not even a thought that comes into the average Indian person's mind, that a woman is, after she gets married, can have an identity of her own. Her identity is mother. Like when you look at any of the conversations that, you know, the most well-meaning men sometimes say, and they always talk, when they're talking about women, they will not talk about women as independent people. Even when they're saying that, oh, we should not harass women, we should not assault women or whatever, when they're saying something like that, they always say, she's your mother or your sister. They will never ever talk about a woman as a human being. As a, like, have you ever heard any person defending men or talking about men and saying he's your father or your brother? That never happens. It's always like mother, sister, because that is the only role that most of our Indian society, and I'm including not just men but every gender, thinks that women's job and roles are, they are either a sister or they're a mother or they're a daughter. They do not have an identity on their own. And Mrs., and I just find it such a fantastic film. I've not seen the original film, but kudos to Anu Singh Chaudhary, Arati Kadav, and I don't know if there's, I think there's a third writer as well, but kudos to all of them for creating such a spectacular film that really gets at the heart of what is the problem with Indian society. And the problem, I would like to repeat, is the fact we don't treat a woman as a human being.
Yeah, I think that was the most uncomfortable part of it. That when I was watching it, it was not just me cringing that I know family members or friends who treat the women in their lives like this, but also on some level introspection of, even in my day-to-day life, and I've been married for just over a year, and I come from a very progressive kind of family, right? Like my mom's mom was working at that time. She got remarried because she lost her husband. So it's been like a very matriarchal family in that sense. You know my mother, and you know that she is a complete badass in that sense.
She's very cool.
Yeah. And she's kind of the breadwinner for that house, even now after my dad has retired. And but still it was deeply uncomfortable because I noticed that there are just certain things that women are, even if it's not said like in the movie that they are expected to do, that they just feel a stigma that if I don't do it, then I'm not living up to who I should be. And it's very simple things. It's not, again, maybe like too many things which are domestic in nature. But even the thing of like, she is on some level expected to talk to my parents more often than I am expected to talk to her parents. You know, that there is always this justification that because I have more of a traditional 9-to-5 job, Kevin is busy with work is like a thing. But, and there have been times when there are her family members who are here and I've genuinely been busy with work. But when she is put in that situation, even when I don't go to my own family things, Radhika has had to go out of this internal kind of thing that if I don't go, then they might think less of me. And sometimes she can't even articulate it in that way. It's so like invisible. And that was deeply uncomfortable for me. But what I want to ask, and based on what
Can
you
I
said,
add one
yeah,
thing over
yeah,
here? And then because this reminds me of something that happened when Daisy and I had just gotten married.
yeah.
And it was so my mother came to our home for the first time after we got married, and she asked Daisy to make tea for her.
Hmm.
You know, and Daisy made the tea. I don't remember if she made, did not make, but something happened there. And then later on, Daisy was very upset. You know, she's like, "Why did she ask me to make tea?" It's very much like what is in the movie Mrs., right? And I was like, you know, it's just tea, right? It doesn't. And this is like, I'm a proper. I mean, I have to qualify this, and I'm saying I'm fully feminist. Okay, I don't expect anything from my wife that I wouldn't do myself. Having said that, I was just like, yeah, she asked for tea. How does it matter? And then you know, it's like even when someone like me, who is an outspoken feminist, cannot even sometimes see these things, where she just pointed out saying that why did she not ask you? And then I was like, yes, why did she not ask me?
Yeah.
And I did not have an answer for that, you know. And then when I asked my mother, she's like, I used to ask you. I mean, she made it a different thing altogether. She's like, I used to ask you and you make very bad tea. You know, I was like, fair enough. But having said that, do you understand? And then I had to have this conversation with my mom, you know, that either you have to ask both of us, you know, or whoever is available, and you have to be like, you know, whichever one of you has the capacity or is available, I would like some tea, and you know, out of love and respect for you, we'd love to make that. But you cannot just be asking Daisy. You cannot just be asking my wife, because that's unfair. And then my mother, of course, took some time to understand that also, because that was expected of her. Exactly. That when she goes into like her parents, when my father's family or even her parents would come, she is expected to make the tea, not my father. So in her head, it took some time also to get that understanding that yes, that if you're not asking your son, you also cannot ask your daughter-in-law, because it's unfair. So either you ask both or you ask neither, but do not ask only one person. Now this is the concept that again is just so difficult for people to understand. I'm so grateful that I have a progressive enough family where when Daisy explained this to me, it struck me and I understood. And when I explained it to my mom, while it took her a little bit of time, she also understood. And now there is no such expectation. Everything we do as a family, we do for each other. It's never from like, oh, a woman has to do this or a man has to do this. It's so equal at this point of time. But it took time to get to. And for that time, for us to get there, we had to have some uncomfortable discussions. But from that discomfort always comes empathy, right? But I mean, if you stop at that moment and immediately dismiss the woman's concern because it's uncomfortable, that's where you get these absolutely ridiculous outrages.
It's very interesting. Sorry, it's very interesting how you said that your mom said that I asked you and you make very bad tea, and I've noticed this so often with women, and of course I understand that it's internalized patriarchy also. It is internalized patriarchy, which is when women say that, oh, please stay out of the kitchen because I don't want you to create a mess. And even in the film, there's a scene where, like, it's, I kudos to the writing, because he says that, oh, we'll cook today. But he starts with, oh, do these 10 things for us, keep it ready, and then, which is literally everything. Like, that's cooking. And we'll just come and, you know, stir the pot. Which is pretty much how all households work. Like, when men cook, it's pretty much that, or they leave the kitchen so messy that women are compelled to say, please stay out of my kitchen because it increases my work 10 times.
It's exactly what my dad was describing my dad right now.
One more thing that I wanted to say was that, you know, I mean, this is something that I think the film also talks about, and I've seen this come up in debates also, where people say that this is division of labor, right? And you see that the man is supposed to sort of go out, earn the bread, and the woman is supposed to take care of the house. But the woman is helping the man lead a life where it's comfortable for him to go and earn the bread. Literally, she's in the film, she's taking out her slippers and, you know, literally doing like the minutest of things for this man. Whereas, what kind of division of labor is this where the man is not aiding the woman at all in anything? Like, he's making the work more for the woman, right? So even if we were to humor this debate for 2 seconds, where we say that, okay, this is division of labor because the man is going out and working so hard, the woman's job is starting literally in the morning as the man meditates. And again, of course, right now we're talking in terms of the film.
She wakes up at 5 while he's still
Yeah.
asleep in the
Yeah.
film. Yeah.
But I mean, even when he wakes up, he's sort of calming his nerves
Yeah.
down, right?
Yeah.
Like he's just meditating and
Yeah.
he's getting his day started very slowly. While she's already up and about getting him
Every
ajwain
family is,
water.
every
and
family.
I also like the thing that I found so, again, just well written, is that when she wants to pursue her dancing career and her husband shuts it down initially, and she's like, okay, I understand that I'm expected to do this work.
Yeah.
There's that one day where you see
Yeah.
she sets the alarm for 4 in the morning so that she can get done with all
Yeah.
of the work and go out for dancing. And that's when the confrontation with the father-in-law happens and he
What
says
a
no.
fantastic scene that
So
was.
there's lots of it. Dharma, I wanted to ask you specifically also because in your previous
Can we just
answer-
talk? I just want to
Yeah.
talk also from an artistic lens of that
Yeah,
scene, because
sure.
that scene is
Yeah.
such a powerful scene, because there's this man who's sitting. She asks him after she's done all the work, and she's like, "I've done all the work.
Yeah.
Can I go now?" And he says this like he's like, "Care of,
Hmm.
you are. What does it say on your postcard? It's that care of this person. I'm the person whose care you are in, and I have to care for you. So I decide that you cannot go out." Right? And then he just goes on the thing, and the way that scene is framed, there is a woman, I mean, there's a man who's sitting here, like patriarchy literally sitting, and a woman over there just standing on the side, just seeming small. Like that, I mean, you could see how small the woman has gotten in comparison to the man who's sitting, like a king on a sofa saying, "Oh, you're dismissed," and there's no further conversation. And there's nothing she can do. She's just powerless in that situation. She's just at the mercy of a man deciding her agency, her future, her life. And this is the truth of every family, and it's most families. I won't say every family. There's still a lot more. I feel like we have really progressed. There's a lot more progressive families right now in our society. But I don't understand how people can watch a film like this and not have empathy for the woman in this situation. And I feel like a lot of the people who have this backlash have not even seen the film, because if they would see the film, they would see their mothers in this film, or they would see some family member in this film. Because I literally, like, the reason it was triggering for all of us is because we've seen our mothers in this, right? And I did a conversation on Be a Parent, which is also releasing very soon, and with my mom, and we had this conversation, about what I've seen, and again, my father is not at all like Kavalji's character, in the film. He is not he has internalized patriarchy just as much as my mother has. My mother used to feel like, oh, I have to do these, I have to do these duties, and my father felt that he has to do these duties from a man's perspective, and mother had these duties from a woman's perspective. But as a child, for me to see the fact that my mother, that scene of, there's another scene, and there's so many scenes that were so triggering, because there's a scene where Sanya Malhotra's character makes biryani, and Kawaljit says that this is not biryani is slow cooked. She goes, she puts in the effort, she sees something just to impress her father-in-law, she sees a video, sees a recipe, makes it beautifully made, right? And then comes and gives it to him. And then he's like eating it like an animal. He just he tears into the biryani, and then she's waiting, expecting like he'll say something, and then the only thing he says is that namak kab hai, and she's just like, you can see she's crestfallen because she's put in all this effort. And this is what Garima was also talking about, invisible labor, right? Like, you don't even see this, you don't even consider this labor. It's happened in my home. I remember, like, again, my father being he's not at all equivalent to the characters of this film. And by the way, the character of this film in no capacity would people look at them and think they're evil. But this is evil. This is malicious, right? This is malintent, and you have to call it for what it is. Having said that, my father's also done the same thing. He has, my mother has cooked something beautiful for, as a son, one of the things that I always did was because my mother would also get into the habit of asking me because about how is the food, because she'd ask my father would always like have case mein namak thoda kam hai, isme cheese zyada thodi zyada, etc. I made it a point to never ever complain about the food, because I did not want to see, I wanted to see my mother smile. So every single time she would come with some food, whatever the taste is, it would be immaterial. I'd say this is the best food that I've had in my life. And I continue doing that to this day. And if I can't ever criticize food, no matter who has cooked. And a compliment can go such a huge way for somebody who's doing this labor. does not need to be invisible.
Yeah.
It is labor. What men are also doing is labor, but men get thanked for their labor over and over and over again. Thank you for providing. Thank you for being the person who brings in the money.
Yeah.
But do women get thanked for the labor they put in? And that's the big question at the heart of this.
Yeah.
And sorry, one more thing is that going beyond the kitchen also, I think a lot of times, at least I have seen this, and of course now there has been a lot of change given how much I have sort of fought with my parents on like a lot of issues. But I've seen this a lot of times where men just come back from office and then they will say things like, oh, I don't like this, or like I don't like the fact that the kitchen is a mess, or I don't like that certain things there is dust on this thing. And it's just, again, it's invisible labor. Just because you have seen one thing that you don't like, you are just disregarding all the labor that a woman has put in throughout the day in maybe making your favorite dish, or maybe she's doing other things, like her job is not just kitchen, because a home is like a full production house if you see it in that sense, right? So if today she forgot dusting, she was probably doing the dishes, or she was probably doing laundry. And it's just men just come in like, oh, I don't like this, like make sure this is, this dust, there's no dust on this shelf next time. And I'm like, dude, how many presentations have you submitted today? Like,
everyone just loves saying over and over again that men earn.
It's entitlement.
And women don't earn, and you have to show the respect to men who go out and earn.
Yeah.
The work that men are doing when they go out to earn is equivalent, or sometimes I would say even lesser than the work that the woman is putting in the home.
And only possible when.
And when I say it's sometimes lesser than, because the woman's also raising your child in traditional Indian families.
And also, I think the most important thing in this is that the man has the agency to choose to go out to work, which is
absolutely.
Right? If it was as simple as saying that the value of this labor is X amount of money, and the woman, by virtue of having a job, can pay somebody to do that, right? And so the first thing that you said when we talked about the film, even before we started recording, is that you said that you felt triggered, and both of you have kind of expressed about it being towards your moms, right? Seeing your mothers and growing up and seeing that they have gone through this. Things have changed a little bit since then, for at least a certain group of people. In the context of when you think of perhaps getting married, this reality, I'm guessing, would not even be like an option in your head, right? So do you have any thoughts on that? Like, have things changed with time, do you think? Or do you think that even people getting married today are going to face the same things in some form that our mothers were facing when they got married 25, 30 years ago?
They're going to. I think it's going to be So, I mean, if I just want to start with one thing before I address this, which is that a lot, like how you said, right, that she can't do anything, she's powerless, right? And now the thing is that the reason women don't speak up in these scenarios is because they don't want to upset the peace of the house, right? Because a woman is also supposed to make sure that everyone is happy, everything is looking hunky-dory, which I think, I'm assuming that my generation doesn't care that much about it, right? Like if something is bothering me, I am going to say that I'm not okay with this. But at the same time, and I've had these arguments at home also, where at the same time, if guests come home and there are men and women from the host side sitting, it's the women who instantly get up and rush to the kitchen to help whoever's in the kitchen, and it's the men who are just sitting and talking and probably making drinks, right? So it's still ingrained in me. I think I'll tell you what, okay, but I feel like this is wrong, right? Like I feel like, okay, why is my mom getting up and rushing to the kitchen? But now it's so layered, right? Because my dad won't probably know how to make 10 different kinds of teas, because my mom has perfected that sort of trick, how to make 10 different kinds of teas for everyone in one go. So now is not the time to have the discussion, right? So of course she will get up and go, and I will have to get up and go out of courtesy because I want to help her. Like I don't want her to be the only one in the kitchen. But why is no one else getting up? And there is very little window to sort of have that argument. And then after everyone's left, there's just, the moment never occurs when you actually have that argument. So I in fact know people who are married, who've had these arguments with their spouses, and they're progressive. and they've had these issues with their partners where they're like, just because I'm a woman, I'm having to do this. And it's a love marriage. It's you know, it's everything. It's everything that the liberals dream of. And yet these conversations are still happening. My friend, my friend who's not even married, she's just living with her boyfriend. She keeps complaining about how her boyfriend is just not used to getting up and just being proactive with household chores. So it exists. It's just women are more comfortable being the Kaleshi woman, you know, where she's going to be like, no, this is not okay. Like, you better get your shit together. And they don't care about the chaos that follows.
This is very interesting that you mentioned it like this, because I feel like, we do a lot of work with the social and development sector, and one of the things that now we're talking about, earlier a lot of work in the social sector used to be based on this theory of behavior change, that if you put out a certain amount of content or have workshops with people and teach them enough, what is their normal behavior is going to change to positive behavior. But now the school of thinking has shifted a little bit to norms, which is that if you have a group of 10 people and 8 people are going to adhere to one thing, so if 8 women, for example, think it's okay that they have to do this, and 8 men think it's okay for their wives to be these people, then that is not going to change until that number comes down from an 8 to 5. Just because any case where women are standing up for themselves or calling their husbands out, or any case where the husbands are also self-aware and feminist enough to want to divide this work equally, that is seen as an exception and not the norm. So even in, for example, you look at the movie where they go to her friend's place, and over there the man is helping out with stuff, right? Like her friend is chilling and they're having a drink, and her man is doing like a bunch of...
And he immediately gets up to help.
And he does that. Even in a situation where she brought that up, that would be seen as an exception, because everywhere else, with the bua, with the friend, with anybody from the man's side, all of those families follow these traditional social or gender norms. The wife is just expected to do that. So
absolutely.
Nikhil,
can I ask if in your marriage, if there is stuff that you see that is that you realize is traditional or I don't want to use the word traditional, but that is more ingrained patriarchy in some way?
Yeah, 100%. I see
like
things,
what?
Every day. It's not, because I feel like Radhika and I both have the language to talk about it, but it still upsets me a lot how the default expectation is still a lot on her. And I am also trying to learn, and that's the message that I hope people take away from this movie, that it shouldn't be that you watch it and you say, oh, other men are like this. I want everybody to introspect, because some level all of us, and like what you said, maybe we've not realized it. Maybe we are self-aware about the overall concept, but we've not faced the situation. So, you guys know, like Radhika is far more financially successful than me. She is a futures and options trader. Our house is running more on her salary than my salary, right? She doesn't have a traditional 9-to-5 job. She works out of a co-working space and she can choose her own hours, which is great. But because of that, there have been several cases where it is just assumed that she will be at home to, and maybe not do labor herself, but tell the domestic worker or the cook that this is what needs to be done. And there was a very interesting article, I think, in the New York Times or the New Yorker about invisible labor, right? That it's not just the fact that your wife is the one doing the dishes or your wife is the one cooking. But the next level of that is, okay, you have a cook, but your wife is choosing what needs to be made every day, right? That men are not taking even this work on. And I'm trying to be cognizant of it, but it plays out sometimes. There was a time I remember where we were at a friend's wedding. We were at Nibha's wedding. And we got back home from Lonavala. And the house was in a mess. Like, the hall was really messy. And we had actually said that our domestic worker is going to come when we're not there, so she should clean this up. But now all communication to the domestic worker also largely happens from Radhika.
Yeah.
Now, one of the points is that this is the same domestic worker who's been working at her mom's place. So this is someone Radhika is familiar with. Radhika has a relationship, and Radhika is brought into our house. So for me, it was just like, my instant reaction was like, "Arey, but did you tell Reshma that this needs to be done?" And she turned around and she's just like, you can also tell Reshma that it needs to be done, which was a very fair point. But also it's that, man, it's so much of this invisible stuff for me that you don't even think of this stuff until, and like, my first reaction was also to get defensive. Because when emotions are heightened, you are like, we are sitting now and it's easy to be these objective feminist men. When you go through it for the first time, you feel called out, right? And instantly a part of you goes like, which is again a problem. And I feel like this film should shatter this whole like nice guy thing. Where your immediate reaction cannot be like, hey, I am not like other men, like I'm still like, I'm not one of those.
Yeah.
And I feel like as long as you are going to that mentally, there is still part of you that requires that change. So I think it does come up, but she is thankfully quick to call me out on it whenever it does. I think part of it also, and one of the parts in the movie which I get very enraged about when I see playing out on social media. And again, I'm a man with male privilege, so I don't know if it is my place to question it when it happens. But I am so triggered by this Karwa Chauth thing. I cannot, I can't. I have so many friends who are like progressive friends or whatever, and they're doing it. And then when I'm just like, for the ones that I'm close enough to, I'm like, hey, why? They're like, no, it's not. By nature, it's not a misogynistic thing. It's like I care about my husband and I want him to be happy, right?
And the twist is that the men also now fast, right? So now it's kind of equal.
Which is good, which is a good spin. But I know places where the man is not fasting. And
I don't think it's a good spin.
No, I mean exactly. But I don't know, and that's what's tricky, right? Because it's like if you have, and I'd love for you to weigh in on this, right? You have in a case where somebody is intentionally choosing to do this, right? Or take like Reels and TikToks where you have this whole trad wife trend that I just wanted, right? So it's obviously not a man's place to say this is good, this is bad, because it's up to you. But objectively, how do you separate if part of it is conditioning or part of it is just you deciding that this is the life that you want?
It is conditioning. I'll give you an example where I submit to conditioning, okay? For example, no, and then I say it also, right? Like I shave my body, right? Okay? Now that is conditioning, okay? Because men don't do it and women do it. And according to like all feminists now, women should just give up, right? Like they should not be doing this, but I still do it. And that is conditioning. So this holier than thou sort of, this you're putting yourself on a pedestal saying that, oh, I'm better than the rest, but no, you're not. And you can't, it's like if you can't beat them, join them. Like that makes no sense to me. It is conditioning. Just because you added a Bollywood spin to it does not make it suddenly feminist, according to me. And I'm right.
You are right. You have any thoughts?
I have lots of thoughts. First of all, I just love the catharsis. I think the catharsis in the film was just so well earned. I think I've clapped while sitting in my room watching that film on Z5. It was, I loved it.
Radhika predicted it. Radhika said she's going to serve them.
Same, even I thought the same. I really thought the same. I saw it coming. I saw it coming at that moment, not before that, of course. First of all, I love how the whole bucket thing was an allegory for what she's going through, right? Like she's trying to repair her marriage. She's trying to change things. She's trying something else. Every single time there's a bucket, something's happening with the bucket, something's happening with the plumbing. It's a sign of her trying and trying and trying, but the water is overflowing. It is just leaking. It's leaking. It's now the water is coming to the brim. So the water has to now overflow. What a beautiful way of, like, I love the craft over here on display, both as writing and direction. And at the end, when she feeds, my favorite, again, such a beautifully directed scene, right? And I've not seen the original, so I don't know how much of it is, from the original or how much of it is just this film. But the way that after she serves it, she's just standing and we don't see what happens there. We just see her expression. And her expression at this point of time is she knows that they're going to scream. She knows they're going to find out. And then she's waiting and waiting and waiting. And the moment they scream and come inside, she throws the bucket on his face. Beautiful. Having said that, and the thing that I want to maybe, I think we'll close probably what we're talking about. This is also, I feel like there's a lot of people on the internet who are saying that this is not reality, right? Men are not like this and, women are not like this, etc., etc. We're talking about, aisa thoda na hota hai. You're talking about an extreme case over here. And I actually agree with them. This is not reality. Because if it was real world and a woman would dare to do something like that with their husbands, she would be burned alive. Okay, and it is true, right? It is very much true, and we have heard of X number of instances. I was reading up online, there is 30% of Indian marriages, it's come from the National Health and Family Survey. 30% of Indian marriages have seen domestic violence by the man against the women. Now, of course, everybody's come back to this is fake rape cases, Anecdotally, how many cases, if any of us has any truth in us, how many fake rape cases do you know of anecdotally, and how many domestic violence cases do you know of anecdotally? It will tell you exactly what you're talking about. And that's the thing about a movie like this, right? This is actually not reality. This is a version of reality which is Bollywoodized, where there is catharsis, where the woman is able to throw the water on his face and then he's able to walk out with no harm having done to her and going on to live a life of that she always wanted, of her dreams. But in real world, that is not what happens. In the real world, unfortunately, women like this are hit, they're abused, they are
Or they just continue living in
or they continue
those
living.
toxic
Yeah,
marriages.
they can't really get out of that system. That's not even a option for a lot of women, you know, and a lot of that also comes down to financial lack of financial independence. This is why so many people today are talking to women and telling them that it's important to be financially independent, because you don't, if you're in a bad marriage, you can get out of the marriage. Every person, every relationship who has ingrained patriarchy, whether it's a man or the woman, needs a chance to be able to do better. If they don't get that chance, they will never do better. And in this film in specific, she gave him the chance. She repeatedly told him that I'm not happy. You are. She spoke about sex. She's like, I have desires, and he made fun of that.
Pause on that bit
Yeah.
specifically. Sorry, but like,
Okay.
just because like it's very interesting to me also that we've not picked up on this point and that this is not part of internet discourse. Because when the Malayalam film came out, a lot of people talked about the fact that in that day, when she's on her period and she can't enter the kitchen, etc., there's also a thing with Sabrimana, where she's passing the temple, and that's like a cultural thing which is not there here. But I think a very powerful thing which was part of this movie is that is marital rape.
Yeah.
He's not once asking for consent. There are times when she's pushing him away, and
But
he
that's
is
not a thing in India, so.
Yeah, legally not. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying that even like the discourse has not talked about it.
Because we can't talk about parents having sex.
Yeah, of course. It's been established in
Yeah.
the previous episode. But sorry, you were saying.
I was.
That's a very big thing that you've said, and to be
Yeah.
honest, I like you know, while those scenes made me very uncomfortable, even with someone who vehemently opposes the judiciary's decisions on marital rape in India, it didn't even strike to me that
it's
is
just gone completely under the radar, and that is
Yeah.
enough reason for her to walk out of the marriage.
yeah, man. Fuck.
And that's how much it's also conditioned, right?
And interestingly, he was a male gynac.
Yeah, I mean that's also that's true. But she
The
brings
layers
it
of
up
this
from a
film.
place of like I have desires too, but it should also be brought up from a place of you don't ask me.
Yeah.
She's very happy that first day when he calls and she gets her period and she sleeps on the sofa, right? Because before that they keep showing that after doing all of that work, she's going to go up and he's waiting for her. And that's about that.
And that now
Yeah.
that if that was a conversation right now, my
Yeah,
God,
that's
and we at some point we should have that conversation as well,
Yeah.
you know, because again for some reason just it all comes down again to agency, right? Because men don't even find marital rape as a thing because they don't understand agency of women.
Yeah, he's like, shadi kariye.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So because
Just drop it.
in the minds of men, it is ingrained. A lot of men just get married to have sex.
Yeah.
You know, and then of course have babies or whatever it is, but they are either getting sex or they're getting a cook or they're getting a domestic worker. That's really ultimately what you know you are.
doesn't even ask her if she wants to have a kid. Remember, like the
Yeah.
part when he first mentions it.
Yeah.
There's that sick joke also about oh shit, you got your.
And this is a recurring thing in the film where
it's
he
there.
says,
Those are
this is a
threads
joke.
that
This is
have
a
not
joke.
been picked up that much because
Yeah.
they're more subtle than the cooking. But I feel like there's so
Fuck,
much
what a film, man.
to unpack there.
But which is why it comes across as her overreacting, because he says something very I don't know, unsettling, and then he just follows it up with, oh, it's just a joke, you know, and which is why the woman is, I mean, people are saying the woman sort of overreacted. So I think this film is a great litmus test to figure out, so the men who've liked this film, I'm ready to date them. But the men who have not liked this film,
Declaration.
you're out of my dating pool.
But see, this is also where like a lot of men are just going to make this film their personality and going to be like, oh, you know what?
It's an
Yeah.
easy thing.
like, oh, have you seen Mrs? I love it.
Yeah.
You know,
You'll have to screen.
you have to do better than
Okay,
just
so
be.
it's not a litmus test.
Yeah,
It can be the
Do
first,
better.
First
Yeah.
criteria.
You have to have a conversation about it and see whether they really truly understood what was the.
Yeah, I feel like now
problem.
flowers have become that litmus. Women are just like, get us flowers, so like everyone just gets you flowers, and then they're like, okay, and
We'll do a separate episode on dating.
We have to.
No.
We must.
I think that
We
will be
must
good.
do a separate episode on Garima's mind also, because I feel like
That's every
there's
episode.
there's a lot there that
There's
needs
a
to
lot. That's right. Yeah,
needs to be spoken about.
okay.
we love her point of view.
Yeah.
Even though Moment of Silence is our favorite podcast.
Yeah, wow.
I didn't say favorite. I said I'm enjoying it currently.
You said I'm in love with
I'm in
it.
love with
You
yeah.
said I'm in love with
So
this
I'm a Gen Z.
podcast.
I can be in love too.
Called Moment of Silence. Full stop.
Next week I can be in
To be
love with
honest, I
another
love it too.
podcast.
It's such a
Okay,
great
cool.
podcast.
We'll see. No guarantees. Before we wrap this illuminating conversation, which is one in many directions, all of which I think are important, we'll come back to the bud or something that makes you hopeful. Garima, you want to? No.
Okay. Yeah. No, I remember the answer. So
Remember the answer.
answer. Yeah.
Answer.
She's the best.
This week I've fallen back into my depressive phase, but I think the thing that is making me really hopeful is the fact that years of sort of taking care of myself, I know the routines and the practices to sort of help me out of it. So even though I'm in it right now, I know how to like climb out of it. So I'm not valuing in it. Yeah. I mean, if you're valuing, it's fine, but like I'm not better than you. I'm a better depressed person than you. Sorry, this is a problem.
This is the
I love
hidden
Garima.
power that
This
is-
is a problem.
Yeah.
Everything is a
This is what
competition.
I'm glad.
Even my
that
depression
you're
is better
winning-
than you.
you're winning the
I really
depressive
cannot
battle.
wait for our podcast to blow up and then people just like
Recognize
creating
that.
and creating like
Garima fan
yeah
clubs.
tributes to
Yeah.
Garima every single week and being
Yeah.
like, oh, what did Garima do today? What did she do? What did she say today? What was the expression like?
That's why
It's
we
all
started
going to
this
happen.
podcast. It's for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been wanting.
Why is it called so what? So what? So what?
It's just a cover.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's
At
just
some point, you'll remove it and it'll say, keep very happy. Like everything at you. Don't try it now.
okay.
Nikhil, what are you? Sorry, you wanted to say.
Yeah, Kevin, what is your bite?
No, I'll ask Nikhil. Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Thanks.
Honestly, movies like this, So in the same week that this released, so two movies released on the same week. One is Mrs., which is about gender from from the women's lens, and then there is Mehta Boys, which is made by the wonderful Baman Irani, which is again a beautiful film
So
from the male lens, and again, I must reiterate for everybody. All the men who have a problem with Mrs. because it depicts the woman's POV, they're not watching or celebrating movies like Mehta Boys, which have the male POV. Instead of, and I feel like that is, what gives me hope is that filmmakers are making both kinds of films, and these films that were not being made earlier are now being made. And huge thank you to Aarti Kadav and Baman Irani for spending time in creating these masterpieces, I would say. Just beautiful, beautiful films. At the same time, I would ask of the people on the internet that instead of spending most of your time just outraging against something you don't like, please spend more time in amplifying and platforming things you do like. And I would imagine and hope that those things can be things like Mehta Boys and not like animals. So I just wanted to qualify that because a lot of the people who don't like Mrs. are the people who like animals. So
Yeah.
watch Mehta Boys. It's a wonderful film. Watch
It
Mrs. is a
is.
wonderful film. What is your bud?
What is your bite, Kevin?
Thanks, guys. So natural. I don't know. This is not necessarily something that makes me hopeful, but it's something that made me happy, and I do want to talk about it. Which is this series called Cobra Kai, which
Ooh,
has ended.
yeah.
Every year when Cobra Kai comes out, I ask myself, why am I still watching it? Because it's been the same. Like, the enemy of the show is miscommunication. Okay, and that's the way that it's been now for 6 years, 7 years. I don't even know how long. But it restores my faith that I can sit in one day and binge a show, because every time it has come out within one day, whether it's 6 episodes, 10 episodes, 13 episodes, I have sat and binged it. It is the cheesiest show, but it has so much heart. And I was crying like a baby
Same.
watching it.
I cried so much.
And it's so stupid, but it's just so.
I cried so much.
It's so
dude.
simple,
Fuck.
I really, really liked it. And it's the first TV show I've finished this year, actually. Which is, it's taken me a while to finish like a whole season of a TV show. And I've tried stuff and nothing wrong with it. I've tried watching Mo, I've tried watching Severance, I've tried watching a bunch of these, and I get invested, but I can watch one episode and then I'm kind of done.
Mm.
And Cobra Kai, I'm just like, bring it on. I cannot stop until I've watched all of this. And it's great. So watch Mrs., watch Mehta Boys, but also watch Cobra Kai. It's a good show.
I also just cried a lot.
And it's about karate, but it's actually about love. I guess.
It
which
is,
good.
man. It's about balance and it's about emotions.
Yeah,
I love it. What a great show.
that's true. So good content recommendations coming out. Thanks, Nikhil. Thank you, Garima, for joining with your valuable perspectives. And I look forward to chatting again next week. Thank you. Thank you for watching that episode of So What. If you liked it, there is a new episode out every week. You can also follow So What by Yuvaa on Instagram. And we also have a Substack where I have not posted for a bit, but I will be back, I promise. And as always, if you enjoyed that conversation, you can like, comment, and subscribe to We Are Yuvaa on all social media platforms.